Of the liberty of children, de libertate juvenam. O thou that art the child of my own bowels, how shall I write to thee concerning children? For herein is the Gordian knot in our whole rope of wisdom, and it may not be severed by sword. No, not of a sword greater than Alexander the Two-Horned. And it is a balance like that of the egg, and the violence of a Columbus will but crack the tender shell which we must first of all preserve. Now sentinel to this fortress standeth certain paradox of general application, and in this large order I will declare it, so that in this particular sense it may enlighten thee hereafter. And this is the paradox, that there are bonds which lead to slavery, and bonds which lead to freedom. All we are bound in many fetters by environment, and it is for ourselves in this great part to determine whether they shall enslave us or emancipate us. And I will make clear this thesis to thee by the way of illustration.
On cultivating strength through discipline. Divi per disciplinam querenda. Consider the bond of a cold climate, how it maketh man a slave. He must have shelter and food, with fierce toil. Yet thereby he becometh strong against the elements, and his moral force waxeth, so that he is master of such men as live in lands of sun, where bodily needs are satisfied without struggle. Consider also him that willeth to exceed in speed or in battle, how he denieth himself the food he craveth, and all pleasures natural to him, putting himself under the harsh order of trainer. So by this bondage he hath, at the last, his will. Now then, the one by natural, and the one by voluntary restriction, have come each to greater liberty. This is also a general law of biology, for all development is structuralization, that is, a limitation and specialization of an originally indeterminate protoplasm, which latter may therefore be called free in the definition of a pedant.
On the order of things, de ordine rerum. In the body, every cell is subordinated to the general physiological control, and we who will that control do not ask whether each individual unit of that structure be consciously happy, but we do care that each fulfill its function, and the failure of even a few cells, or their revolt, may involve the death of the whole organism. Yet even here the complaint of a few, which we call pain, is a warning of general danger. Many cells fulfill their destiny by swift death, and this being their function, they in no wise resent it. Should hemoglobin resist the attack of oxygen, the body would perish, and the hemoglobin would not even save itself. How, O my son, do thou then consider deeply of these things in thine ordering of the world under the law of Thelema? For every individual in the state must be perfect in his own function, with contentment, respecting his own task as necessary and holy, not envious of another's. For so only mayst thou build up a free state, whose directing will shall be singly directed to the welfare of all.
On the fundamentals of the state, De Fundamentis Civitatis. Say not, O my son, that in this argument I have set limits to individual freedom. For each man in this state which I propose is fulfilling his own true will by his eager acquiescence in the order necessary to the welfare of all, and therefore of himself also. But see thou well to it that thou set high the standards of satisfaction, and that to every one be a surplus of leisure and of energy, so that, his will of self-preservation being fulfilled by the performance of his function in the state, he may devote the remainder of his powers to the satisfaction of the other parts of his will. And because the people are oft-times unlearned, not understanding pleasure, let them be instructed in the art of life, to prepare food palpable and wholesome, each to his own taste, to make clothes according to fancy with variety of individuality, and to practice the manifold crafts of love. These things being first secured, thou mayest afterward lead them into the heavens of poesy and tale, of music, painting, and sculpture, and into the lore of the mind itself, with its insatiable joy of all knowledge. Thence let them soar.
On the will of children, de voluntate Iovum. Long, O my son, hath been this digression from the plain path of my word concerning children, but it was most needful that thou shouldst understand the limits of liberty, for that is not the will of any man which ultimeth in his own ruin, and that of all his fellows, and that is not liberty, whose exercise bringeth him to bondage. Thou mayest therefore assume that it is always an essential part of the will of any child to grow to manhood or to womanhood in health, and his guardians may therefore prevent him from ignorantly acting in opposition thereunto, care being always taken to remove the cause of the error, namely ignorance, as aforesaid. Thou mayest also assume that it is part of the child's will to train every function of his mind, and the guardians may therefore combat the inertia which hinders its development. Yet here is much caution necessary, and it is better to work by exciting and satisfying any natural curiosity than by forcing application to set tasks, however obvious this necessity may appear.